Okay, now in this video you can put the calculator aside. You have a new type of equation that you're going to learn how to solve, but I want you to get familiar with the process and really understand it before you actually solve. So in this video, I just want you to do some simple things here. Okay? First thing, what you have is 3, and then the square root of x plus 3 times is what that means, because you don't have a operation there. 3 times the square root of x plus 2 equals 6. Now here's what you're going to do. First thing, you're going to make a little box up there. And what's special about the x? Well, it's not in a power, okay? You know that much. It's inside of a square root. And I know there's a plus 2 in there with it, okay? That's fine. So we've never really had to solve equations with when there's a square root in the actual equation. Now we've had x to the second power, and then we used a square root to find the answer there, but I've never had it where x started in a square root before. So there's a procedure you have to get familiar with, so I do want to see that up there. And next thing I want to see, if you have x and that's the only one you have and it's inside of a root, there's only going to be one answer. Now you might think, oh, it's a square root, so wouldn't there be 2? No, that's when x is to the second power. And the second power is not the same as a square root. So, because 9 to the second power is 80, let's take a number 9. 9 to the second power is 81, but the square root of 9 is 3. So square root and second power aren't the same thing. Just take my word for it. If x is inside of a root, and that's the only x we have. Now, if it's x to the second power in there, there'd be 2 answers, but there's just 1. So I want those 2 things. That's pretty easy to write down, not too strenuous. Now, here's the next thing I want you to do. I want you to circle the root. First off, I want you to put a little 2 in there so you know that's a square root, okay? Now we're going to make a list of our steps, okay? So far this, not hard. Now the last thing you're going to do is write what steps you would use to solve the problem. And I explain this a little bit different than I do some of the other equations. Now, you know how when you have a second power, you do a square root? Well, when you have a square root, you're going to do a second power. So write second power right there. Now, before that, you need to look outside your circle. Look in front of the circle first. You have a number that sits right in the front with no sign, like no operation sign. Yeah, you have this 3, and that means 3 times. You don't have to put the dot there if you don't want, but it's 3. So before you do the second power, you would have to divide both sides of the equation by 3. So write divide, parentheses 3. Now, check and see, and the 6 don't count. I'm going to cover up the 6 because I don't care about that. That's on the other side of the equation. Is there a plus minus outside the square root? That doesn't count. The plus 2 doesn't count. That's in the square root. After the circle, do you have a plus or minus? No, you don't. Okay? So that's your list of operations. Okay? That's what you're going to write down. So those 4 things. What's special about x? How many answers? Circle. And then right there. Because you have a square root, second power, but before that you would have to divide both sides by 3. All right, now, for future references, just trust me, it doesn't affect what we're doing here, but change that 2 to a 6. Okay. All right, what's special about the x? Any power? No, but it is inside of a root. It's inside of a square root. So it's not to a power, though, in its root, so there's only one solution. Now put a 2 there and circle that. Okay, so you have a square root, so you're going to write second power because that's what the opposite of a square root is. Now look in front of the bubble. Do you have a number out there like you did here? No, so you're not going to have to divide. Okay, now after the square root ends, do you have a plus or minus? Yeah, you got a plus 2, so you're going to have to undo the plus 2 by minus 2. Okay, so I need those 4 things written on your paper. This, what power you'd use, and any operations you'd have to undo outside the root. The This is how we solve variables when they're inside of roots. Okay, because all right, next one. What's special about the x? Again, it's in a root. So there's only one solution because it's not to a power, it's just x. Okay. Now circle your root, put a 2 there, just the root. So you have a square root. The opposite of a square root is a second power. Now above it, you got to go above it. Don't be listing it. That's the last thing you put. I don't want to see, you got to write on top of it, okay? Because when you work and solve the problem, you're going to go this way. So it's like you're listing your steps out backwards. Now, do you have a number right in front of the circle without a plus minus sign? Yeah, 5, okay? So you're going to have to undo the 5 times by dividing by 5. Just put division sign and then what you'd be dividing by. Now, do you have any other numbers, 15 doesn't count, that are after the square root, like a plus or minus? No, you don't. So that's what you do. You stop it at there. All right, next problem. This one's a pain in the butt, okay? X in a square root, okay? One answer. Go put the 2 and circle it. All right, so we got a square root. The opposite of a square root is a second power. Now, do not write downwards, write upwards. Work your way up, okay? Do you have a number out front of the root without a sign? Not the 7, because there's a minus between that. Actually, you do. When you have a minus with no sign, you're going to put a 1 and then a plus negative. So actually, you do have a number there in front of the root. So you do have to divide, and you would divide by -1. Okay, now do you have any other numbers out here besides the -1? Yeah, a 7. And 7's positive, so you'd have to minus 7. Okay, so those 3. So if I had to solve it, I'd minus 7. I'd divide by -1, and then I'd do the second power. Okay, and you'll see how that works in the next video. Okay, next problem. You have x inside of a root. This time it's a cubed root, though, but there's only, the x isn't to a power right here. There's no power here, so there's only one solution. Okay, circle the root, and it's a cubed root this time, so that would mean a third power. Okay, right outside your circle, you got any number? Yeah, -2, so you would have to divide by -2. And other than that, you got any other numbers? Yeah, 7, so we would have to minus 7. The steps have to be listed in that order, okay? All right, next problem. What's special about x? Well, it's in a cubed root, but there's no power with the x, so I assume there's only one answer. Okay, so circle just the cubed roots, starts and stops here. So I'm going to do it right third power down. Now above the third power, I see if I have a number in front. Yeah, we do, a 3. So divide 3. Then other than the 3, you got any other numbers? -4 doesn't count, okay? Yeah, you do. You got a -2, so you'd have to plus 2. All right, next problem. What's special about x? Oh, I don't know. How about the fact it's in a cubed root? Not to a power, though. There's no power with the x, so there's only one solution. Okay, so circle your cubed root. By the way, the 3 means it's a cubed root. It'll be up to the left. It won't be just out front. Okay, you got it. So cubed root, you'd have to use a third power. Okay, you got any numbers in front of that cubed root right there? No, I don't think you do, so you would not have to divide. Do you have any plus or minus taking place outside the root? +7's in the root, outside the root. No. So that's all you do, third power. Okay, next one. So what's special about x? The fact it's in a root, that's the first thing I want to see. The next thing I want to see is how many answers. Just one, because it's in a cubed root, but it's not to a power. Okay. All right, so I will be circling my cubed root where it stops and starts. So we know to eliminate a cubed root, you do a third power. Okay, and then in front of that, you have a 4, so you would need to divide by 4. You notice how I'm writing upward. You need to do it like that, not downward. Screw the problem up when you go solve it. Okay, and we also got another number here, plus 2. So I do the opposite of plus 2, which is minus 2.